Hey there, my name is Pallas Dame, and I am an integrative nutrition health coach. I practice integrative health and integrative energy medicine, along with a variety of other things. And I am here today to talk to you guys about my journey and why I started my company, my passion about holistic living, as well as an upcoming course that I have that's going to be starting a week from today, actually. So today, where I'm at now, I have a couple of companies, and one of them is my Fuel Your Fire for my practice in and of itself. What I do over there, I consider it integrative health, multidimensional medicine, multidimensional healing, working with people from all different aspects of their health, wellness, and longevity. So we can start simply with the food you eat. And I call that a secondary food because they're required no matter what. They should be whole, healthy, and pure and clean, predominantly plant-based with a little bit of protein, as well as lifestyle, which are the big extenuating factors in our lives, which are considered primary food. And the primary food would be like spirituality, career, relationships, exercise, those types of activities in our lives, and many, many more that create the picture of what our lives are about, how we show up in life, how we integrate with others, the things that make us happy, the things that fulfill us, right? And when the things that are in our lives are out of balance, the primary foods, then the foods that we eat that put into our body don't really matter all that much because our body's not going to be able to process them the way that it would otherwise. And these things I'm so passionate about because of my own journey. It's been, probably about 9 years ago at this point when I started getting really, really sick. I mean, I'd been getting sick before that, but I didn't recognize what was going on. And I had what was later found out to be as Lyme disease, with these crazy co-infections that went along with it that ultimately really destroyed my life. And later on, was diagnosed with some crazy aspects of things, such as bipolar, ADHD, a personality disorder, generalized anxiety. I had crazy things going on with my gut that I didn't know about till much later. So it's about 6 years ago at this point. Is it 6 years, 5 years-ish, that I finally decided to go to the Aman Clinic in Orange County, California, where I wanted to find out what went wrong with me. What went wrong, where I literally one day in my life was totally fine and healthy and thriving, or so I thought, to when my son was born, an hour later, falling into panic and anxiety and despair and depression, things that kind of the epic mom fail is what I thought at the time, and too ashamed to talk to other people about. And also I thought these are things I can just work through. And these things compounded on themselves over the years till they got worse and worse and worse, and until I couldn't ultimately function any longer. And my husband stumbled on the Amen Clinic to help me figure out what went wrong with my brain. And so the Amen Clinic is ultimately founded on integrative health. That means they bring in traditional medicine as well as holistic practices. And it was in this place that I found out that I had Lyme disease. I had a co-infection, a really serious co-infection, Ehrlichia, had active mono or Epstein-Barr, and serious gut issues going on, which at that point in time, I didn't have any clue that the gut meant anything, like in the big picture of things. I just knew I was really sick, and my brain scans came back with brain damage, and my doctors were saying, yeah, you have all these psychiatric issues, but here are some potential things that you can do alongside all the drugs and things that they were having me take for the Lyme, on how I could improve my life. And at the time, as sick as I was, I thought, this stuff's kind of crazy. You guys want me to eat these kind of things and bring in, these other elements such as meditation and things in my life that I hadn't been doing before. I had no idea the profound effect when they were saying that food is medicine, and how all of these things impact the gut, which impact the mind, which impact everything about the human body. All of these intricacies, these interrelated aspects of things. And so the things that I ended up having to bring into my life during that time, one was crowding out specific foods. I had to do like the full, like, no dairy, no wheat, no soy, like all the stuff that was in the foods that I normally ate. And I was terrified from it. I'm like, they're like, these things are hurting you. These things are hurting you, but you can't eat them anymore. And I'm like, I don't know how to eat differently, because these are how I've always done things. And at that point in time, what I had to do in the middle of this major health crisis was start teaching myself how to do things differently. And that was really, really hard, because I'd gone through my whole life always doing things a certain way. I never had to think about food, never had to think about the impact on my mind in that way. And so over the course of several years, I had to crowd in all of these nutritional aspects of things to start feeling better. Like none of it made any sense to me until I could start becoming my own science experiment. From the beginning of it, I'm like, you don't want me to do all of this stuff. You're putting all of these frameworks and these boxes around how I live my life. And I had so much resistance to it. I had fear around it. I had, big emotional connections to the food that I ate. Aside from the fact, it just seemed insurmountable to be able to change my entire diet to potentially impact my brain health at the time. And I ended up over time, bringing in more healthy foods, more organic foods, more, less pesticide laden things, way less processed foods. I went through many years with zero. We have not much at this point, but just on the diet side, trying to improve my gut health, which at that point, I didn't know what that meant. But the gut is so important to how the brain functions, because the brain itself, it literally runs from up here in the head. It runs down the brainstem. It connects to the heart area. So you have your brain in the head, the brain in the heart. The brain runs down the spinal column through the back and connects with the gut all the way down to the end of your tailbone. Where we've thought in the past that the brain is just in the head, the brain is our entire torso. And the things that regulate it or dysregulate it are the things that we are connecting with in everyday life, the things that we eat. Like we have a nerve that runs from our head down to our tailbone. It's the vagus nerve. And it relays all of this important information from the head brain to the gut brain to the head brain to the heart brain, putting together all of this information to help make the body function. And then at the time, also, I had no idea that in our gut, we have more neurons in our gut. These are really special things that are also in our brain. And in our spinal column, we have more neurons in our gut than we do in our entire spinal cord. We have GABA receptors. Our gut has all the same stuff, well, almost all the same stuff as our head brain does. And when we are eating poorly, when we are stressed out all the time, when we are unhappy, when we have unhappy lives, we have imbalanced lives, that these things go in and impact our gut, impact how we digest food. Where people like, food is boring. Science, this kind of science stuff, is boring to me. It was boring to me too. And until I started finding out and realizing that there's so much of this was giving me mental illness because of my health journey, my disease that I had, because my gut was so out of balance. I had all this bad stuff going on in my gut where I needed to have all this good stuff. And so this food, this having to learn how to eat differently, having to learn to crowd in the healthy things into my life, to crowd out the things that weren't serving me, ultimately ended up changing my entire brain chemistry and the production of very, very specific, important chemicals in my gut that impacts how my brain functions today, how yours does, how anybody watching, we all function in the same way. And that it was up to me, it was truly up to me on how was I going to start healing my brain, and how all of this has to do with why I started my business. It's because going through this process, I became the greatest science experiment of my entire life, of things that I never ever thought that I would have any interest in whatsoever. I liked living life and being carefree and doing what I wanted and not really having to be accountable to myself for the choices that I made, for the food that I ate. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do because it tasted good and do the things that I'd always done, right? But after going through this experience for several years, I learned that I had to become accountable to myself, that it was up to me to restructure my brain, to literally heal the things that went wrong in my body that would ultimately facilitate my healing in my journey back to health. And so I decided to enroll in the Institute for Integrative Nutrition to first start learning about this holistic living, these holistic processes. Like, what is this really all about in the middle of my health crisis and my health journey? And through this experience, I started learning about all these other aspects of what holistic living actually is, and integrating spirituality, not for me, not dogmatic spirituality, but truly connecting with my kind of spirituality, with the divine nature of myself, of things greater than me, of things that truly matter and mean something to me in the ways that make sense to me, of connecting with what are toxic relationships, what are truly healthy relationships. What does my career play into all of this? Which at the time I didn't have one. I couldn't. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I still am on top of my work. So that is a career, but I wasn't a paid career, right? But being a stay-at-home mom, how fulfilling was that for me? How stressful? What were the elements that brought together these things that ended up making my life either more beautiful or more difficult? And exercise. Just these are core elements of what are considered primary foods, the things that make up the different aspects of our lives, of who we are and how we live and what we do and how we integrate with the world. And over this year of this deep, deep dive into meeting myself with where I was at, which wasn't in a very healthy place because I was very sick. I was mentally ill. I was categorized as mentally ill, and really, really struggling. But going through this deep dive of meeting myself with where I was at, being exposed to 100 different dietary theories, all these different aspects of what does it actually mean to show up in the world and connect with other people, and what roles do relationships play in my life? How do those impact me in the long run? What do toxic relationships and toxic people bring to me that I then put out into the world? Or what would my life be like if the people I surround myself with and connect with are people that lift me up, people that fulfill me, people that I can benefit? Well, they benefit me, I benefit them. We can learn and grow and change and transform together, become better, stronger people just because we know each other, versus other relationships that I'd had in my life of people that were fun to party with, fun to hang, good time pals. But when it came down to the brass tacks of life, they weren't there. Or when retrospectively looking at the dynamics that we had were really unhealthy, of the things that they brought into my life, the mindset, the experiences that they had, and an inability to be the person in my life because they couldn't be the person in their life, and they would actively choose to not improve or grow. And they became an energy vampire in my life, which would take my precious time, my precious energy, my love, my dedication, my friendship for, they would take advantage of those things. And I'd never really considered myself a pushover in those ways. But I also was always one of these people who, if somebody was going to throw a party, it was going to be me. If somebody was going to cook all day, have this huge spread of food and just invite everybody to this community event, which I do love doing those kind of things, it would be me. But then there would be my beautiful friends that would come, and then there would be these other people that would show up just for the party and just to take advantage of the fact of my good nature, of all the stuff, the alcohol that I would provide or not, the delicious food that I would cook or not, the entertainment, the whatever, but then I would never hear from them again until a year later or 2 years later when I would do the thing, right? And maybe in between times, reach out to them, be like, hey, how are you doing? This thing's going on in my life and it's difficult. They'd be like, oh, sorry about that. Like, okay, crickets chirping, So I didn't have the level of discernment really about what healthy relationships were. I had bad relationships in the past years ago with boyfriends, bad relationships with friends that I would partner myself up with because it was fun and exciting to do the stuff. But on the flip side, I would become sicker. I would become super tired. I would have nothing given back to me in return after always giving from a heart-centered place, or not, if I would get sucked into the negative dynamics of those individuals and became the normal. Not that I was ever a bad person, but I definitely had periods of my life that I look back on and it was rather flat for me. I partied, I had fun, I had a ton of fun in that way, but the people I surrounded myself with were also people that weren't going anywhere. And so if I position myself with people that aren't going anywhere, and I identify with people that aren't going anywhere, and I connect with people that aren't working on growing and learning and changing and transforming in their lives to become better human beings, to go deeper in themselves, to learn more, to grow more, to become more, to kick into the creativity of what it means just to be human, which means being open to the possibilities and the potentials of growth, of learning, development, of moving forward in life. Those weren't the people that I was surrounding myself with, and I wasn't one of those people, right? But it took me many, many years to learn the difference between friends and what friendimacy is, what energy vampires are, and why I was or wasn't moving forward in my life. And when it comes to holistic living, relationships are a huge, huge, huge part, integral part of the life balances that we choose to create our existence around. And gosh, if our relationships are totally out of whack, we can't even see it, then how do we really set goals for ourselves too? Right? How do we set goals for ourselves? If we're starting from pretty much a flatline place with blinders on and kind of being in a box and not being able to see outside of our own world, how do we create goals? How do we actually establish a foothold to start from if we're living in a non-reflective place, right? Our world only extends this far, and the people that are reflecting back at us only extend it, the same way. And the stress that comes about from having these negative relationships, some abusive, some just energy vampires, others just not contributing anything because they're not contributing to anything in their lives, in their own lives. They don't care. They're stuck, right? They're not ambitious to move forward and become better. And how this translates to me or to us, people in general, we take on stress. We take on stress. We make worse decisions in our lives about how we show up in the world, the kind of jobs that we choose to take because of the people that we associate ourselves with and the belief systems that we hold around who and what we are. We create our reality. The more our stress, the more the digestive issues are that we're going to have, the greater our opportunities of getting sick. Stress equals breaking down the immune system. The immune system breaking down equals more stress. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? How do we balance out the things that are going on at a physical, biological level in connection to what's going on in our outer world? Our outer world is a reflection of what's going on in our inner world. If our outer world is in chaos and tumult, our inner world is in chaos and tumult, if our outer world is really difficult to navigate and stressful, our inner world, our mind, our gut, our heart, they're not going to be faring too well either, physically, biologically, chemically. We become negatively impacted on the physical plane by what we choose to allow or not allow into our lives in the external world. And creating a holistically balanced lives means looking at how all areas of our lives are balanced or not. And when we can see the areas that we are showing up with significant lack, then we have a reference point of where to begin, of what we want to do to help ourselves feel better and start moving forward in life. But until we can create a framework around what actually doesn't feel good and where those things are coming from, we tend to tread water and be stuck in our worlds that we have actively chosen to create for ourselves, which may be healthy, may be dysfunctional, may be abusive, maybe just lost, stuck. All of these things are choices. But until we realize that we have choices around how we're living our lives and what to do about that, we're not going to be able to move forward, right? And so these things, holistic living, the course that I have coming up next in a week, that is specifically related to relationships and goals. Holistic living around relationships and goals and how that impacts our lives. It's an 8-week course, deep dive into each of these areas, one module per week that I'll be coaching through each week with a supportive community where everybody's going to be able to connect and share experiences and thoughts and ideas. We'll be working on mindset and meditation, really deep reflecting into who we are and how we're showing up in the world and what we're allowing in. It'll be great. It'll be profound. And so for the rest of this week, I will be having a short masterclass every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I would love for you guys to check in with me, see what I have going on, what I want to share with you guys. I have some pretty good information that I really want to bring to the table. And would love to have you guys ride this out through the week with me and possibly check out the upcoming course, Journey into Holistic Wellness, Journey into Holistic Health, 8-week course all about relationships and goals. And this is just the first of a 5-part series that I'll be having going on for the entire year. And you guys can connect with me at pallasdame.com, PALLASDAME.com. But also you can connect directly with me inside the Conscious Leadership Network, which is community.consciousleadershipnetwork.org. Couple different places. So come meet me. Love to talk to you, love to answer questions. And I hope that you guys have a really great day. And all of these aspects of holistic living, they're really important for all of us. Once we can understand the poignancy of each of these aspects, each of these elements, and how they all come together to create the picture of our lives, how all these elements have come together for me to paint the picture of my business as an integrative health practitioner, as owning Fuel Your Fire, so that I can show up and serve others, so that I can share my journey, my experiences of my journey and my wisdom with others and pay it forward and help others to thrive rather than having to be stuck. To join me in the Conscious Leadership Network, which is also my company that I am building to create a framework for people to connect and collaborate and come together and innovate and seek and learn and grow. So I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for your time today, and have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.